All right, guys, so Doctor Strange has come out with a brand new sequel. It's got a multiverse, it's got madness, it's got Sam Raimi back in the director's chair, and I'm too excited to talk about this. Let's get straight into it, guys. Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. Hey guys, it's your guy in the chair here, and this is my review for Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, starring Benedict Cumberbatch, Elizabeth Olsen, Xochitl Gomez, and Rachel McAdams. And our journey here takes us following Doctor Strange, where he meets this girl, America Chavez, and she's being chased all around the multiverse by these various creatures who are trying to steal her powers, or of essentially being able to jump through the multiverse. And now we are sent on this mission where Doctor Strange has to protect her from being snatched up by one of these creatures. Now, that is the best way I can explain the plot, because a lot of stuff happens in the movies that, one, I'm not 100% sure the trailers really gave away. I don't think they did, and honestly, I don't want to, this isn't a spoiler review, so I don't want to go into spoiler territory, so that's the best way I'm going to describe the plot. I'm going to skip over a lot of intricate plot details just because there is a lot to unpack for this movie. There's a lot you could possibly spoil, and I don't really want to do that for anyone. I want everybody to experience this spoiler-free. So this is going to be my spoiler-free review for the movie. I'm just going to talk about what I liked, what I didn't like, my overall thoughts on the movie. I'm going to keep it as non-spoilery as possible. Here we go. Okay, so to start out with what I liked about the movie, I'm going to talk about Benedict Cumberbatch as Doctor Strange. Look, I love this character so much. Over the time, Benedict Cumberbatch has just become one of my favorite portrayals of a character in the MCU. Doctor Strange isn't necessarily like one of my favorite characters in Marvel, but as far as Benedict Cumberbatch goes playing this character, he's easily become one of my favorite Avengers. He's, honestly, for me, he's become the new Tony Stark. You know, he was always that know-it-all character, had the same, you know, kind of traits as Tony, just, you know, not all the way there. You know, they have their slight differences, but they're pretty much the same. And now he's honestly taken on this, you know, new Tony role where he's just self-aware, just knows it all, and just, honestly, he's really set in his ways. And Benedict Cumberbatch just does a great job in this movie in general. I just, you know, him as the character of Strange, like, I can't see anybody else playing this character. I can't see anybody else, you know, trying to do this, take over this character at some point. No, Benedict Cumberbatch is Doctor Strange, and he just does a great job in this entire movie. I mean, it really isn't much more for me to say on that point. Like, Benedict Cumberbatch is great. I mean, it's like saying water is wet. I mean, that's just really not news. Now, of course, one of the biggest standouts to me in the entire movie was Wanda Maximoff. Now, essentially, I can't get too deep into what her character does because, like I said, I don't necessarily know if everybody knows what's going on with her character in this movie. Now, granted, we are building off of course, what WandaVision set up, and that was the pain and trauma of her losing Vision and her children, Billy and Tommy. And of course, there's a continuation of that story in this new movie. I just can't go too deep into, you know, what everything is, you know, specifically there, but she was absolutely phenomenal in the entire movie. She does such a good job as this character. I'm going to be honest, like, we saw a preview of how good she was in WandaVision. She didn't even reach what she is in this movie yet. Like, I was thoroughly impressed at the performance that she gave. She carried most of the movie. For me, she carried most of the movie. Like, she did a very good job of just portraying all that pain and becoming the real Scarlet Witch, becoming like this real evil presence. I just really enjoyed everything about this movie as far as her character and you know, everything dealing with her goes. I think she just did a really good job throughout the entire thing. She really stood out, and Sam Raimi did a really good job of just bringing out the horrific horror elements in her. Like, they just did a really good job with her character in general, and I really liked everything I saw from her. Another thing that I really enjoyed about this movie was the fact that Sam Raimi gets to be in a director's chair again. Essentially, he hasn't directed a movie since, I think, Oz, the Great and Powerful with James Franco, and he hasn't done an MCU film since Spider-Man 3. So for me, seeing Sam Raimi back in the director's chair again made me very happy, made me, you know, very ecstatic to see what he comes up with in this movie. And honestly, it's a horror movie, and, you know, Sam Raimi, you know, with Evil Dead, Drag Me to Hell, he has some experience in that horror category, and he does a very good job of bringing that expertise to this movie, and he brings out a lot of horrific elements. Like I said, he brings horror elements out of Wanda. He does some horror stuff with Doctor Strange, and you know, it was very entertaining. It was very fun to see. It's a lot of madness going on, and he does his best to control it, but I'll get to that in a second. But Sam Raimi was definitely somebody who I enjoyed just being a part of this movie, and he does such a good job with the special effects in this movie. Essentially, I like to call them strange effects because it's a Doctor Strange movie, so you're going to need the strange effects to keep people on their toes and just a lot of weird, crazy stuff happening. And in particular, Sam Raimi stands out with this one fight scene where it's like they're using music notes as, weapons. And the sound of, not only the sound effects in that scene are incredible, but like just everything in general, the color schemes, the way they're, drawing stuff up, doing the magic. Sam Raimi is clearly having a lot of fun in this movie, and it's honestly great to see that because you need fun in this movie. You need, essentially those horror elements that they wanted to capture. Sam Raimi does a good job of trying to capture every element that this movie wanted. And this movie definitely wanted a lot of elements. But they acted like they just didn't want to do too many elements. I don't know. I'm going to get to that part right now. But as far as Sam Raimi goes, I enjoyed him so much. Now, for me, where this movie honestly doesn't work or, really didn't sit with me well, probably starts, way back when Scott Derrickson left the movie, and I'll explain. So, essentially, Scott Derrickson left this movie for creative differences, and Marvel was really trying to do a lot when it came to this multiverse thing. And this movie, even when Sam took over, had to go through, a few reshoots. They had to, push the schedule back to let this movie go through some reshoots so they could capture certain things going on in this movie. So with that being said, I feel like this movie had so many good ideas, just poor execution for it. And essentially, I'm not going to go into too many details because, like I said, I don't want this to be a spoiler review, but I'm going to try to explain it as best as I can. So I just feel like when it comes to this multiverse thing, the MCU wants to do so much, but it can't because there are so many different projects, still being written and still being made that, you don't want to reveal too much, or they can't reveal too much because they don't know where they're going with certain things. Now, essentially, the Illuminati, which is already all over Twitter, like that was not even a spoiler. The Illuminati in this movie, I can't even say that was a spoiler because it was everywhere before this movie even came out. They didn't even really hide the fact that Professor Xavier was in this movie anyway. So as far as the cameos go, I'm not going to spoil all the cameos, but the Professor Xavier one in particular just made me go, I don't think they, really have a control on this cameo thing. It's like, the Spider-Man thing, that was probably going to get out because, nobody could, be patient just to wait and see if Toby and Andrew was in the movie. There had to be theories and speculation all the time until, it actually happened. But I just feel like for this movie, they kind of tried to carry on with that, or they tried to, do this. They tried to replicate that as far as the cameos go, and it kind of just loses focus at times. It just kind of loses focus on itself at times. And what I mean by losing focus, I mean like sometimes we're going through the movie and a certain plot is happening or a certain thing is happening, and then it's like, all of a sudden, we forget that, this is a multiverse movie, so we have to jump back into the multiverse and, just be sure to be exploring some sort of world or going to some sort of places. It's just like, I feel like the multiverse isn't the main thought in this movie, and it kind of just gets in the way in certain points of the movie. Like, it's like, essentially this is supposed to be the multiverse of madness, and people are going to assume just because multiverse is in the movie, like certain things are going to happen. It's definitely not going to happen the way you think. At least I don't think people know how this is going to go. And essentially that could be a good thing, but it could also be a bad thing because I feel like the word multiverse is going to mess with people's perceptions of how this movie is supposed to go. So I honestly think people should go in with a fresh mind and not focus so much on the cameos or essentially, who you're going to see or what universe is going to be open or what are we going to be speculating towards. Like all those questions, I feel like you should really hold on to because it's not going to happen the way you think it is. And I feel like it'll take away some enjoyment of the film if things don't happen the way you want them to go. And it's not really your fault that if that's the way it is. It's really Marvel, setting up this it's really the word multiverse in general. I feel like that's just going to bring this movie a lot of problems. Now, I'm not saying it's not like we're not traveling through the multiverse. We do go through the multiverse and we do go to certain worlds, but it's like, it's not like we're going to see, the entire X-Men cast. We're going to see, the Ghost Rider. We're not going to see like special characters like that. But it's like, just the word multiverse is kind of just going to, make you think that you're going to be in for a certain type of ride. And it is that ride, but it's not 100% what you thought it was. And just for me, it didn't really, satisfy me that well, because I felt like the story could not flow as one because of the multiverse, part. Anytime the multiverse had to be mentioned, or we had to go back to what was going on in the actual story itself, I just felt like that stopped from exploring two different things. And that's honestly going to lead me to another point that I felt about this movie. So I personally feel like if they really wanted to go through with the whole multiverse thing, and they really wanted to, give a full-fledged or a fleshed out, story, I felt like the movie could have been a little bit longer, because I just felt like I said, they wanted to, doing the multiverse thing, they wanted to explore certain things, but they couldn't, because they had to keep a story, they had to keep, the main story going, and it would have been a distraction at some point. So I just feel like if they really wanted to flesh this movie out a little bit more, it could have been a little longer. Like, I really felt like we were just jumping to certain places at some points of the movie. Like, the first and the last act of the films are very good. It's just that second act, or when we're in the middle and we're going through things, I just feel like we're getting to places not too fast, but I just feel like we're not really earning where we are in the movie yet. Like, I just feel like, they're trying to do a lot of fan servicing. They're really trying to do a lot in this movie without doing too much. And it just becomes a lot. It's madness. Madness is the perfect word for this movie. I mean, it's not necessarily bad madness. It's just very chaotic as the plot goes. And like I said, I just feel like as far as the multiverse goes, Marvel doesn't really know what characters or what people they want to use yet, so they're just doing this fan servicing thing with the cameos, and they're just having fun with it. But I feel like they don't really know where they want to go yet with other universes and do with other projects yet. And you don't have to indulge. You don't have to just force that. Like, if you don't know, that's okay. Like, but don't necessarily get people's hopes up to thinking that one thing is going to happen and it's essentially not. And the trailers were kind of misleading in certain ways too, but I can't get into that because it's spoiler territory. But just overall, the movie really just, my overall thoughts are essentially, it is madness. Like, as far as the plot and the writing goes, and, them wanting to involve the multiverse so much and do so much with, all these different characters. I just feel like we're jumping all over the place. Now, as far as the America Chavez character goes, she's great. The characters themselves in the movie are great. Rachel McAdams does a very good job. Wong is, entertaining. And like I said, the special effects in this movie are great. All the different, Doctor Stranges we meet throughout this movie, great. Special effects, awesome. It's a very fun movie. The action set pieces, the horror set pieces, everything is fun. But as far as the writing goes and just making this movie feel like one flowing thing, it doesn't really do that. And honestly, Chiwetel Ejiofor's character, his name, I don't know I think Modor, it might not be Modor, but Chiwetel Ejiofor's character, he's in this movie, and I thought he was going to be doing something completely different from what he did. Now, he kind of does it, but not really, because it's another version of himself. But like I said, I really just thought some other stuff was going to be happening in this movie, and it didn't. And I just felt like, I don't know, yes, the trailers were misleading, but it's like, at this point, there was so much advertising for this movie. I only saw like 2 trailers. After that, I don't really see the need in watching any more trailers. But a lot of stuff it's just, I don't know. I just feel like this movie misleads you in a lot of different ways, but you're still going to have a lot of fun with it. I mean, overall, this movie is a lot of fun. This movie has good action. Like I said, the story is kind of out of whack for me. It just goes all over the place at some points. America Chavez is great. Wanda Maximoff is fantastic. She does a great job in the movie, and it's just pretty inconsistent in some terms. And I wanted to love this movie. I did. But I was sitting there at the end, and I knew there was something wrong with this story, or something wrong with just the way they were putting this thing together. And honestly, like I said, the movie really started probably with the creative differences with Scott Derrickson leaving this project in the beginning. Because I feel like he would have I felt like with them putting Sam Raimi here, like, Sam Raimi was able to do like all his Sam Raimi style directing. Like, he was able to do all his effects and all his, essentially the way he does his movies, but he just wasn't able to really have creative control over how this story went. I could tell, you could definitely tell like when Marvel wanted to put their foot into this movie, into this story. You can definitely tell when they wanted to put their 2 cents in and they wanted to make sure like this happened this way, and it didn't really have to. But you know, it's just not really much you can do there when Marvel really needs to push an agenda. So that's my thoughts on that. So overall, guys, look, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness is a very good movie. I had a lot of fun with it. Madness is the perfect word for this movie as far as the writing and the plot goes, because it just goes everywhere at times, and I feel like it's trying to get to the fan servicing. It's trying to really get to so many places. It's trying to, it's trying to be a lot at once while not trying to do too much, but it just ends up doing way too much in the end anyway, if that really makes sense. It's trying to, wrap up a lot of plot lines. It's trying to set up a lot. It's trying to do a lot. And I feel like we will get more explanation for what this movie was trying to do in the third Strange movie. But as far as this goes, I had a lot of fun with it. I just wasn't, floored with the movie. I wasn't necessarily, over the moon about it. I was honestly, I can't even lie, guys. I was hoping for a little better follow-up from, No Way Home into this story. Now, as far as No Way Home goes, like that ending and, that movie in general just had so much build-up, which is why I think the third Strange movie will honestly lead us to essentially a payoff for what we got in this movie. But as far as what this movie is, it's a lot of fun. It's got the horror elements. It's got some action. It's got the strange effects that you're going to love. And it's got some great characters for you. As far as the character building, the only character building you're really doing here is with Wanda and Strange. Other than that, everybody else is just there for plot reasons and to move the plot forward. America Chavez, I hope to see her again. Like the way she was used in this movie, just, like I said, really makes me think. I don't know how this multiverse thing is going to go into the future, but I really hope to see her again in this movie. And honestly, guys, I really wanted to love this movie, but I just liked it. It's cool. I don't know where it ranks among my MCU movies. Probably not going to be in my top 10, but I gotta sleep over it. I gotta think about it. But for all those reasons and so much more, guys, I'm going to give Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness a 3 out of 5 stars. Originally, I was going to give it a 3.5 out of 5 stars, but, just hearing myself and doing my review, I got to give it a 3. I just didn't, it really didn't, hit like that for me. I wanted it to. It was good. It just wasn't, the best of the best. And honestly, it's not really, the movie's fault itself. It's that multiverse word. It's just that multiverse word. If you really don't know where you want to go with that multiverse, if you really don't know what you want to do, that'll just bring a lot of issues to your film. And that's what I feel like that word is just going to bring a lot of issues to this movie, just by, making people think certain things are going to happen and they didn't. Or it's just multiverse in general can be a very misleading term, just because you think a lot of stuff is going to be brought in and it's not. Or essentially you think a lot of stuff is going to be brought in and it's done a different way, and you're kind of just disappointed. Like, I'm not the person who thinks like too deep into these Marvel theories. Like when it came to all these cameos that were being announced, I'm not trying to look too deep into it because I don't want the movie to be spoiled for me. But I just felt like at some point, the cameos became more important than giving us an actual story themselves. And, this is the movie we got for it. So Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. Have you seen it? What did you think about it? What was your favorite moment from the movie? Let's get a conversation going down in those comments below, guys. Look, be sure to like, subscribe. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it, guys. This is your guy in the chair. More content coming to you soon.